Hello, and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve, and you would think in a game week where I had Haaland captain for a 17-point hat-trick, both Gordon and Salah returning 10-pointers, Jota picking up an assist, and my 5.5 million gem of João Pedro scoring an 8-pointer, that I'd be over the moon with how game week 2 went. Not to mention that early last week, before Chelsea's Europa Conference match was played in midweek, I had issued a severe warning about Nkunku, saying he was heading to the Chelsea bench. And then Nkunku started midweek against Servette, basically confirming my prediction a few days out from the Wolves fixture, meaning I was looking very well set up for the game week. And as you are all aware, Nkunku was then benched in the Wolves match, making my prediction spot on. And the ruthless nature of the marketplace has already seen Nkunku drop down to 6.4 million by the close of the game week. I also accurately predicted that Canate would start over Kwanzaa, and so I did deal with Kwanzaa by making an early transfer or a game week 1 transfer, bringing in Lewis Hall, and my game week started to go downhill. So we'll go into the Lewis Hall benching in a second, but before we jump into it, remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, especially if you get any value out of the following content. And as always, I've put the various timestamps down below so you can jump through to the sections that interest you the most. So yes, the replacement that I bought in for Kwanzaa was Lewis Hall, who ended up starting on the bench against Bournemouth. Now, seeing Lewis Hall benched was pretty gut-wrenching, to be honest, but after watching the match, I'm not at all convinced that Kelly has taken the spot off Lewis Hall. Now, Kelly was rather dubious in some defending situations, particularly when Semenyo was bearing down on him in the box, as Kelly constantly backed off, allowing Semenyo closer and closer to goal on more than one occasion. Lewis Hall then came on late in the match, set up Isak with a decent headed chance about a minute after walking onto the pitch, and looked way more lively than what Kelly had produced in the first 69 minutes of the match. Now, I am beginning to wonder if Eddie Howe started Kelly against his old club of Bournemouth because he may have had insight into how to defend against them. If this is the reason why Eddie Howe started Lewis Hall over, started Kelly over Lewis Hall, then I actually think this was a mistake by Eddie Howe. Now, in my experience of playing left wing and the 9 for pretty much most of my career, we spend so much time training drills with the forwards playing against the defenders that we inherently know the weaknesses of our own defensive units all too well. In fact, in every single pre-match warm-up that I ever did, I was always watching the other team run their warm-up drills to pick out who had a bad touch, who wasn't accurate in their passes, and making mental notes on who to target on the field. Now, just look at what happened when Chris Wood played Newcastle last year. He actually had a field day against the back line that he spent so long training against. Now, regardless, given the disparity in performances between Kelly and Hall, I am actually inclined to hold on to Hall for a little bit to see if he gets his spot back, especially considering the some slim pickings that are currently available in the 4.5 million price point, as well as the fixtures that are laid out in front of us. But these are just my early thoughts, as the game week literally just finished about 10 hours ago. And not only did Lewis Hall get benched, but the game week 2 carnage continued throughout the game week. So, first of all, Pickford gifted Son his first goal by allowing himself to be tackled with the ball, leaving Son with an open net, which he obviously did not miss. Son then went on to score another goal. This one was just a textbook strike from a clinical finisher, earning himself a 15-pointer to claw back a huge chunk of Haaland's 17-point captaincy for all those managers who went Son over Haaland. So these will be the teams that had, say, Salah and Son, and then a stronger defensive line. Watkins left his shooting boots at home and somehow didn't score two huge chances, leaving Arsenal's clean sheet intact. So the key men of Gabriel, Saliba and Raya all got their second clean sheets of the season, while Saka managed to grab an assist to further chip away against my score. Man City somehow concede to Ipswich in yet another fast break, wiping out Guardiola's clean sheet with about the only decent chance that Ipswich had all game, in what was otherwise a bit of an exhibition match at times between City and Ipswich, as the difference in quality levels was way too obvious. And so Guardiola did not keep up with the big points coming out of all of the Arsenal defenders who are so heavily owned. Emile Smith-Rowe, one of the other key 5.5 million budget enabling options, scored a brilliant goal and earned all 3 bonus points to surpass Pedro's 8-pointer with a 10-pointer of his own. Eze seems to be trolling me, as he had a goal disallowed in the first game week, which the referee admitted should have been a goal. And then in game week 2, he goes on to hit the crossbar, as well as having a one-on-one saved by the outstretched foot of Areola, while Crystal Palace also conceded 2 goals without Anderson in the squad, who is left for Fulham, leaving both Henderson and Munoz in my team with single pointers. Palmer then went on a rampage against Wolves, getting a hat-trick of assists and a goal, earning himself a 7-pointer to also wipe out Haaland's captain points. So basically all the semi-premium assets that were options if you didn't go for a Haaland and Salah draft all came away with big scores this week, which is pretty frustrating. But the one that really hurt was Anthony Robinson, losing his clean sheet as I thought he might, but he ended up grabbing an assist from a pass that he made from about 6 yards inside his own half, hugging the touchline, to Iwobi, who ended up doing a half-field sprint to score the assist for him, when Robinson was second on my list behind Lewis Hall and was the more assured starter out of the two. And so I ended up scoring 77 points for the game week, with that 8 points above average. I did earn myself a tiny green arrow, However, I'm about 17 points off the top 200k right now, which incidentally would have been a perfect triple captain result for Haaland had I decided to go early with the chip. That was a pretty bittersweet game week, all things considered. Now, I do have some key notes from the game week, specifically around Manchester United and Manchester City. And so on United, Ahmad started again over Garnacho, ended up scoring a great goal, and then Ten Hag subbed off Rashford for Garnacho, leaving Ahmad on the pitch until the 89th minute. Now, I definitely think this was a correct decision by Ten Hag. Ahmad was definitely playing way better than Rashford. But then Ten Hag made some really weird substitutions, taking off Fernandes for McTominay after 78 minutes of the match when the score was level at 1 apiece. Now, I can only imagine that Fernandes wasn't 100% fit, as he didn't seem to be pressing as energetically as he was in game week 1. But I still don't know why he brought Fernandes off there. I mean, Fernandes is pretty much our only creative asset in that team, linking up defense and the forwards very well. I have no idea why he's taken him off there. It's a terrible decision from Ten Hag. But then Ten Hag also looked like he was having words with Zirkzee while walking off the pitch after the game. Now, obviously, I have no idea what Ten Hag was saying to Zirkzee, but the body language from Zirkzee looked like Zirkzee was protesting that there was nothing he could do. So I can only imagine Ten Hag was raising concerns about the offside goal. Now, my thoughts around this are that Fernandes should have been aiming for Zirkzee when that offside goal did happen. And if Zirkzee wasn't aware of Garnacho at the back post, then he has to make an effort to make connection with the ball that should have been meant for him. Zirkzee was the closest man, he was free, and he was in on goal, and Fernandes should have been picking him out. Now, if Zirkzee hadn't checked over his shoulder to know that Garnacho is at the back post, all he sees is a wayward pass. He has to go for it, assuming that there's probably no one behind him that's kept up with the play, and that Fernandes should have been aiming for him anyway. So my thoughts are, I don't blame Zirkzee at all here. Perhaps he does need a little bit more awareness of what's going on the pitch around him. He is brand new to the squad, and he won't be familiar with the runs that the other players around him typically make. But in that moment, he should only be thinking about getting into position, focusing on Fernandes's pass, and focusing on scoring that goal. It is not Zirkzee's fault that that pass was so wayward. Now, if Ten Hag was indeed blaming Zirkzee, I do not like this at all. He's making Zirkzee into a bit of a scapegoat when he really should have been talking to Fernandes about hitting the mark with his pass. Also at United, in my video last game week on the summary of game week 1, I identified Martinez as a bit of a liability. And he's still on my list of liabilities given the performance that he put in against Brighton. And specifically, I think he's at fault for both of our goals. So in the 32nd minute mark, when Welbeck scored from Mitoma's assist, if you go back and watch that move, Martinez should have seen Welbeck directly in front of him, unmarked, and known that he was the main danger man. But instead, Martinez prioritised the man behind him, looking over his shoulder rather than trying to get in front of Welbeck, who eventually scored the goal. He should just be darting right in front of Welbeck there to cut off any pass that might make it into him. And if the pass does go long to the man that he was looking at back post, he knows he's already there. That's when he has to do a shuttle turn and sprint back and shut down the other man, because he did have two men to cover. Now, of course, that is a bit of a defensive mistake from the defensive unit as a whole, but Martinez has made the key mistake there of not prioritizing the most dangerous man in the box. And then for João Pedro's goal in the 5th minute of extra time, João Pedro was standing free, far post, with no United player picking him up. He also had another Brighton man directly behind him, also free, so there was actually two men free in the box, far post, with about 8 United players in the box. This is just terrible defending. It was a great chip over by Adingra as he got his head up and saw the two men free far post, and sent a perfect ball into João Pedro, who nods home from about 6 yards away from goal. But if you go back and have a look at this move, Martinez is miles out of position. But even if he was at the far post, like he should have been, João Pedro would have towered over him and scored the header regardless. Now, I called out Martinez as a bit of a liability last week for giving away free kicks in unnecessary circumstances, but I also noted that he is absolutely useless on set pieces, saying that he probably needs to be either marking the short man or marking a post. But in this case, I don't even know why he was out where he was in the box. He's nowhere near the back post. It's just terrible defending. So Martinez, I think, if Ten Hag accurately identifies this as a problem, is probably going to be removed from the squad in the coming game weeks. Not that that's really a big concern for FPL, as I don't think many players actually own any United defensive assets apart from maybe Mazraoui. But if you are looking at the likes of United as a defensive option, you may want to wait until Martinez is eventually dropped so we can get a bit more assurity in that defensive back line. Now, Man City, the Ipswich goal was Rico Lewis's fault a little bit. Now, I'm not blaming the goal on Rico Lewis, but he definitely could have interrupted that move a lot more effectively. Now, what's happened here is Rico Lewis has been tracking back from midfield. It was a quick counter from Ipswich. Kovacic got absolutely blasted for pace on the outside. He did do well to push him wide, but the man that was coming through in the centre was the man that Lewis was tracking. But at the moment that the ball was passed, Lewis tried to divert his run to hold the offside line instead of tracking his man, who eventually scored. Now, this is only a small mistake, and Lewis knew he made it instantly, as you can see in his body language as he watches the ball trickle over the line. He's kind of doing a jump and a jump back, saying, "Slow down, ball, don't go in. This is my mistake if it happens." Now, I don't think this is enough for Lewis to get dropped at all. I think Lewis had an outstanding match for Man City, and I'm kind of wondering if I should have gone for Rico Lewis instead of Lewis Hall. But it is definitely something to keep an eye on because, as I mentioned in the intro, Man City have been conceding a lot of goals from fast breaks. In fact, in 2023-24, Man City conceded 7 goals from fast breaks, and they've already conceded another one in game week 2 against a promoted side of Ipswich. Now, when will Pep address this issue? Because this is a consistent issue that keeps happening. There has to be some sort of pace put into the backline. It could be that Rico Lewis is dropped in favour of Kyle Walker, with Kyle Walker maintaining the right centre back, or actually, yeah, the right back centre back slot of a back three, with Gvardiol getting forward, which would allow Walker's pace there to try and track any fast counters. But also, it could just as easily be that potentially Walker comes in for someone like a Kanji, allowing Rico Lewis to stay in his inverted but very far forward positioning up the pitch, which would have Rico Lewis right back, Walker as the inside right centre back, DS as the left centre back, and then Gvardiol as the left back, which would still allow Lewis to get forward and would leave the back three of Gvardiol, DS, and Walker. But it depends on exactly when Pep addresses this and how he addresses it, because they do need to stop conceding these goals from fast breaks. Now, a very quick update on the whipping boys. Now that we have seen, excuse me, now that we have seen 2 game weeks of football, I think we should all be targeting Everton. Forgive me, I've forgotten exactly who it was in the comments last week, but they did raise concerns with Everton. Everton then went on to concede a bucket load of goals against Spurs, and from what I have seen, Everton definitely look like a team to target. We should also very much be targeting Ipswich and Southampton, and I actually haven't seen enough of Leicester yet to know whether or not they are key targets for our attackers. But there's definitely 3 whipping boys that are clear and obvious right now, and that is Everton, Ipswich, and Southampton. Now, my video last week, I did say that part of what I might be doing with this, bringing in Lewis Hall, is using Harwood Bellis off the bench as part of a rotation system when Newcastle have tricky fixtures against Spurs this week, City in game week 6, and then Arsenal in game week 10. Southampton actually have some very good games, but Southampton conceded 23 shots against Forest in the game at the weekend, and so I'm definitely going to be trying to route Harwood Bellis to the bench. So that is pretty much the roundup of what has happened in game week 2. Now there are some more key bits of information that will be coming out in videos later this week. So we'll do another video in a couple of days' time around Nkunku replacements at the 6.4 million price point, as he's already dropped in value. And I'll also do a final video for my team selection heading into game week 3, which will specifically be focused about what I am going to do with Lewis Hall. But if there is anything else that you would like me to cover, drop a comment on this video and I'll either respond to it in the comments thread or address it in one of those 2 videos later this week. And alright, well that wraps up this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a comment to tell us what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.